My life imploded, betrayal, pregnancy, and a mother's shocking demand. I never imagined my life could spiral into a nightmare of this magnitude. A secret pregnancy. A betrayal of the deepest kind. And then, my own mother, the woman who brought me into this world, suggesting I relinquish custody of my children. How did I get here? It all began so differently. So, normally. My husband, Dave, and I had been together since I was 21 and he was 23. We dated for 2 wonderful years before he asked me to marry him. For the last 12 years, we built a life and a family with 2 beautiful children. Early on in our relationship, Dave introduced me to his mother, Mallory. I really liked her immediately and really tried to impress her from the start. But unfortunately, the feeling wasn't mutual. She'd been a widow for a long time since his father passed away from a heart attack years ago. He was a total mama's boy and incredibly nervous about me meeting her, desperately seeking her approval in everything he did. The biggest reason Mallory never took to me was because I came from an upper-middle-class family, with parents who owned multiple businesses. I even had a brand new car after I graduated college so I could get to work on time. I always worked hard to support myself and never asked my parents for any financial help. After college, my husband had a very different and more difficult life. His father worked in the military and passed away when Dave was young. He had to take care of his mom from a young age. He started working at McDonald's when he was quite young as a part-time job to earn extra money. He even dropped out of college, where he was pursuing a communications degree, because he couldn't manage it anymore. He told me how unhappy he was during this time, being a college dropout with limited options. He started working as a freelance writer and surprisingly was able to do quite well. Throughout all of this, his mother would ask him to send her monthly allowances. As our relationship grew more serious, I finally decided to tell him about my family and our generational wealth. He didn't believe me at first and was shocked I had kept it a secret for so long, accusing me of not trusting him enough. I really apologized for not telling him until now. After that, he understood and was mostly fine with it. But occasionally he would tease me about how I never had to worry about money. I love managing influencers and brands, and this is how I funded my entire lifestyle, without needing my parents' money. When we decided to move in with each other, I happily agreed and then started discussing how we would be splitting rent. Dave didn't like that. In this case, I told him that although I didn't think this was fair, I would still pay half the rent. He said I was being selfish and implied that if I didn't agree to pay his bills, he wouldn't move in with me. We argued back and forth, and I finally caved. I had to cut back on a lot to pay for all our bills. Meanwhile, Dave would continue sending his mother monthly allowances and buying her extravagant gifts. Whenever I would point out how he had the money to send to his mother yet he wouldn't pay the bills, he would lash out and make me feel guilty. So I stopped bringing this up again. When Dave proposed to me for marriage, he put the absolute least effort into it. I had been looking forward to the proposal for a while, but it turned out he thought proposing in our backyard was a good idea. My mother, who absolutely adored Dave, suggested he could help from my best friend. Facepalm, he ended up proposing in my backyard in front of my entire family and friends. Kylie had been my best friend since high school. Her family is like my family and vice versa. My mom and her mom grew up together since kindergarten and both became friends. We have always been solid with each other. She was like my sister, my soulmate. We have done absolutely everything together. Her mother absolutely adores me, just like my mother loves Kylie like her own daughter. When Dave and I started dating, I of course introduced him to Kylie, and they became good friends also. Kylie helped not only plan the proposal but also choose my ring. Having her there with me on my special day made me feel much better, even though I was a bit disappointed about being proposed to in my backyard. My mother, Kylie, and Kylie's mother were the first ones to hug me and congratulate me. I couldn't wait for all the expectations for me as a daughter-in-law to finally be over. That was a happy night for everyone. Eventually, Dave and I got married. And even after marriage, I have continued to pay for everything around the house while he doesn't spend a penny on me. I continue to pay for our weekly date nights and our yearly vacations because Dave insisted that he was saving up money for our future. When I got pregnant with James, our first child, I had a very difficult pregnancy. Dave started arguing with me about how I needed to work. Otherwise, We would not have enough money to sustain ourselves with a child. This made me cry a lot. And this is when I opened up to my parents for the first time about our situation. My mother, surprisingly, tried to sympathize with Dave and told me that I should continue to have a job while pregnant. On the other hand, my dad was pissed. He called Dave to give him a piece of his mind and told him that it was time for him to be a man and step up. He warned Dave that if he continued to behave this way with me, he would not make his daughter go through any suffering, and it was better for us to get a divorce. Although I never wanted to divorce my husband, I agreed to sign a prenup at the insistence of my father before our marriage, navigating the lifestyle he would lose. So, for the first time ever, Dave listened to my father and started paying all the bills around the house. I did continue to pay the rent since I had more than enough savings. Because he stopped sending Mallory any money, she would constantly complain. When I first gave birth to James, everyone visited me and our brand new baby in the hospital to congratulate us. Kylie stayed with me at the hospital for days until I could recover and come back home, since Dave was busy with his work and refused to look after me. Once I was back home, being a new mother made me quite nervous. This is when my parents and Kylie's mother would help me out as much as they could. Mallory, on the other hand, never bothered to lift a finger to help me out whenever she would come to visit James. After giving birth to James, I found myself overwhelmed with a profound sense of sadness and emptiness. I did not know at that time, but I was going through postpartum depression (PPD), which a lot of mothers go through but seldom talk about. Despite my best efforts to communicate my needs and share the responsibilities of parenting, Dave had no idea how to do anything. As I grappled with the demands of caring for our newborn and coping with PPD, the weight of my responsibilities grew heavier with each passing day. Despite my attempts to reach out for help, my expectations and needs were consistently unmet. This is when I decided to open up to my parents about my mental health. While my dad was understanding, my mother refused to believe that there was anything wrong with me. She told me that PPD wasn't a thing and that I should be strong enough for my baby to get through this. When I would complain to her about Dave refusing to help me out, she dismissed me. I was struggling, and it felt like I was drowning. With my mother's refusal to believe me and Dave's lack of effort, I really began to feel like I was going crazy. My best friend, on the other hand, was a constant source of support. It felt good to know that besides my dad, I had someone else to count on during such a tough time. A year later, to my shock, I found out that I was pregnant again. I was very unsure how to deal with this, but I wanted to trust in God and God's plan. So I decided to go along with it. Dave was furious. He told me that I needed to abort the pregnancy ASAP since we couldn't afford another baby. This made us argue. And in the end, I decided that it was time for me to get back to work. I ended up going back to freelancing until a more permanent position would open up. I was determined this time due to my new responsibility as a parent. This time, when I went back to work, I would deposit my entire paycheck in our joint savings account. However, I wanted to think and be prepared for my future as well as my kids. So I started to keep 50% of my paycheck, and only the rest 50% would go to our joint account. Once I started earning money, Dave suddenly started to complain every day about how he disliked his job and that he wanted to quit. I would try to talk about it rationally, but he would say that he wanted to change degrees, so he needed to stick with his job. This would piss him off since he didn't like to be reminded that he was a college dropout. I argued with him that I never took a break, but that I was pregnant and struggling while forming another human being inside of me. Despite our arguments, Dave ended up quitting his job so he could rest for a while. I would leave James with my parents whenever I went to work since my mother didn't mind watching him. When I would come back home after picking up James from my mother, Dave would be on the couch playing video games. This went on for a while, and I started to grow tired of picking up all the responsibilities as a parent. So in anger, I told him that he needed to spend time looking for a new job. Dave didn't like that, which is why he started to go to his friend's place every day where they would both play video games. His friend, whose wife had cheated and left him, was a misogynistic influence who contributed to nothing but negativity. I held on for the sake of my children. When I gave birth to Nina, our second child, Dave was apparently so busy that he forgot to check my multiple calls and messages. When I went into labor, I never once suspected him, even though these red flags were waving right in front of me. My parents had to take me to the emergency room. Kylie came the next day to visit me and the baby. and told me how sorry she was for not being there for me since she was stuck at work, which was quite alright with me. I finally put my foot down and told Dave that this was his last chance, and that if he didn't go back to work, then I was going to pack my things and leave. This resulted in a huge fight between us. But I didn't care anymore. I needed to be with someone who could be equally responsible, because it would be impossible for me to take care of everything now. Dave told me that he would start looking for a job the next day. The next day, while my husband was in the shower, and I was taking his dirty clothes for laundry, I saw a message on his phone. I turned my head to see a message on his lock screen from a familiar number. Kylie. I picked up the phone to click on the message. When will you be telling her about us? I am pregnant and can't hold off the news any longer. When my husband got out of the shower, he saw me standing still with his phone in hand. He rushed to snatch his phone from my hands. But it was too late. I kept the laundry bin down. I didn't even think twice. And it felt like my body was possessed by someone else. I was shaking with anger. And my husband was shocked by my reaction. His eyes widened in shock as he quickly put two and two together. There was no possible misunderstanding. I looked him straight in the eyes and told him that he was dead to me. I packed my bags and packed the kids' bags and drove them to my parents. My parents were shocked to see me standing in the doorway with my children and luggage. I've been crying continuously for the last 2 days. In these last few cases, I just can't believe how my life has ended. I have told my boss everything, and she has graciously allowed me to take a few days off. Honestly, I am at a loss for words. Which is why I'm on Reddit. My best friend of 20 years decided to betray me by sleeping with my husband of 12 years. Which is pretty much over. Dave and Kylie have been calling me multiple times, begging me to at least hear them out. But I refuse to do so. Dave is begging me to not divorce him, saying how I should think about our children. I don't know if I am doing the right thing if I went on to divorce my cheating husband and take away everything from him. Update. Thank you for your multiple messages and comments on my post. I know it's been a month since I left you all hanging without an update. I am back at work since no matter what happens in life, I can't miss my work for so long. Honestly, work feels like a welcome distraction to me during this time. A lot of you people wanted an update, and I would like to apologize for my lack of communication. Kylie sent me a long message saying how she didn't mean to hurt me, and that she was sorry. She also claimed how she never intended to end up helping Dave with the baby now, that she is going to be a mother. You have to tell me, well, Dave, on the other hand, knew he had made a mistake and in his words, he just wanted to sleep with Kylie. But because she is now pregnant, he has no way out. He has been begging me to forgive him, and even has gone as far as to tell me that we can probably convince Kylie to give up her baby and raise a baby together. I mean, his delusions and entitlement fuel my anger even more. Apparently, Dave's friend, who he was always hanging out with behind my back, while he was out playing video games the whole day, about how he is mentally distressed in our marriage, started to encourage him to meet up with Kylie, saying how she was clearly more of a woman. I still can't believe that my husband went to sleep with my husband. I don't know what her motivation was, even though she already knew how shitty of a partner Dave was to me. But at this point, I honestly don't care. Kylie has also mentioned in her messages that she was feeling very regretful about what she did, and wanted to tell me everything that was going on between them. She even mentioned how she knew she wasn't doing the right thing but didn't have the courage to do. So, what was your plan all along? But who knows? Honestly, I am glad that she decided to take my marriage. I am also sure the day I went into labor, both of them had not picked up my calls for help because they were together. But this isn't even the cherry on the cake. When I first told my parents about Dave cheating on me with Kylie, my mother refused to believe me while my dad completely went ballistic and called Dave and shouted at him for a good 15 minutes. Even when I was crying, my mother tried to say how I could be wrong about this, since there was no way that Kylie would betray me. She was pissed that my marriage might be over and was doing everything to defend Kylie. She was such a girl's girl. We already have a lawyer in mind, and with my prenup and Dave's cheating, I am confident in the divorce. What might be tricky is when it comes to the custody of my children. But I know that Dave will never want any responsibility for them. When my mother realized that no matter how much she requested me to not get a divorce, I wasn't going to listen, she seemed to have changed her tune. This took me by surprise when she first suggested it, but when she continued saying this for the last few days, I finally lost my temper today and started shouting at her about how dare she suggest something like this to me. But she didn't say anything and walked out of the room. Her behavior has started to make me feel extremely suspicious. Why would my own mother ask me to give up custody of my children when she knows that Dave is not a capable father? I feel I need to sit down and confront her in front of my dad to find out exactly what she has in mind. Update to update. It's only been a few days since my last update, but my DMs are flooded with people coming up with their own theories. I know for some of you, this might seem like an entertaining story, but this is the reality of my life. My lawyer has served divorce papers to Dave, and he called me crying like a man-child begging me to forgive him. But I just laughed at his misery and told him to get ready to lose everything. James and Nina are doing well despite the family drama. Dave never spent much time with them to begin with, so they're not missing him much. It has been very difficult for me to take care of a baby while going through all of this chaos. My father and I are in discussion with Kylie's mother, and she plans to cut her off, since this is an embarrassing situation not just for my family but also for her family. She says how ashamed she is of her own daughter and fears Kylie will be contacting her for financial assistance. The news of my divorce due to Kylie's backstabbing has spread to my friends. This is when Mallory finally gave me a call. Throughout the last month, she didn't have a single ounce of decency to call me for comfort or to apologize. I am sure she knew about all this, but she kept quiet as she unabashedly continued to say how if I was a good daughter-in-law, I should return back to him and retract the divorce proceedings. She tried to justify her son's cheating by saying that men are easily tempted, and that it was our responsibility as women to bring them back. I couldn't hear her nonsense any longer, so I asked her to shut up. I reminded her that I was the one who had taken care of her man-child her entire marriage, so she had no right to ask for such a thing. Mallory tried to apologize as a last-ditch effort, but I hung up and warned her to never call me again. It felt good to finally stand up to her and show her that Dave was going to get exactly what was coming for him, and no one will be able to save him. I also sat down with my parents today to have a talk regarding my mother's suspicious behavior. I had already given a heads up to my dad about how she had been forcing me to give up full custody of my children. I straightforwardly asked my mother why she had been asking me to give full custody of my children, even though it was never going to happen. My mother first hesitated, but my dad kept grilling her and finally, she confessed. They met up and Kylie started begging her for forgiveness. My mother couldn't believe this was the person she had looked after for so long, and that she had never suspected her. My mother, instead of shouting at her, promised to help her out financially because she's a big believer that families should still help each other out no matter what. She wanted to continue to support her child even if he was married to me. Kylie didn't want that. So then my mother changed their tactics and started telling Kylie that if she was responsible for ruining my marriage, then she should be responsible for raising the kids as well. Kylie was shocked at first to hear my mother say this and told her that I was never going to let Dave be a part of my children's lives, and according to my mother, apparently, my children needed a healthy parent figure. My mother even went as far as to convince me to give up custody of James and Nina. When my dad and I grilled this information out of her, we discovered the full extent of her betrayal. My own mother thought because of my PPD I was incapable enough to raise my own children, and she would rather have Kylie raise them than me. Because Dad refused to help me in any way, and for how I used to beg him to be a father, and how I would single-handedly take care of everything. My dad, utterly disgusted, asked my mother to simply get out of the house. My mother started crying as they kept arguing, but my dad told her that their marriage was over. He didn't want to see her face anymore. I don't remember much, but eventually, my mother packed her bags and left. She has to stay at her sister's house now. I honestly don't know what to do. It feels like I can't trust anyone anymore. Everyone seems to be betraying me like I mean nothing to them. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I know it's been a long time. Thank you again for all of your support. It seriously helped me keep from giving up on my life when it was too hard, and it kept me going. First things first, I got my divorce last month. My dad, who has been my backbone this entire time, kept me pushing to move forward. We went ahead with my divorce proceedings, and I won the case thanks to my prenup agreement. When it came time for the custody of my children, Dave fought hard for full custody at first. However, when the judge asked him a few simple questions about the kids, it was painfully obvious he knew nothing about them, since he really had no legal leverage anyway. He quickly dropped the charade. Custody was awarded in my favor. My lawyer argued how he had been a deadbeat father our entire marriage, and how he didn't have a proper job. My lawyer also mentioned how his mother was an alcoholic and how he had even cheated on me and got another woman pregnant. Nothing made me feel more satisfied than watching his face droop in sadness. Just like I had promised. He was bleeding dry. Secondly, I have come to terms with what my mother has done. After what she did, Dave is not coming on to my mother for forgiveness. My dad has firmly refused to let what she did go so easily and has asked her to go to therapy about her internalized misogyny and how she was to have treated me this way when I was so vulnerable. I know my parents love each other, and it breaks my heart to see them apart. But I do understand why my dad wants her to talk to a therapist to get better. My mother has been apologetic while she continues to stay with her sister. But my dad has remained steadfast in his demand that she seek professional help. I don't know if it will help her in any way, but I hope she does change. Although I have reconciled with my mom, I am still in contact with her mother. Kylie's mother. She gives me updates on how Kylie is doing. I know it's probably going to be a shock, but Kylie had the baby. Kylie is very happy with her baby. Kylie's mother has also gotten back with her daughter to help her care for the baby. I've also heard from the grapevine that Dave doesn't want to marry Kylie and wants nothing to do with her. Mallory is furious with Dave since she has already lost 2 grandchildren, James and Nina, because of him, but he remains adamant in his decision. As for me, I'm doing a lot better since my divorce. I am focused solely on my children for now and don't want to keep holding on to any resentment. I won't say that this journey has been easy, but I will say that I don't regret anything that I have done. I am glad I loved Dave and married him, because otherwise, I would not have these 2 beautiful children. I am also glad he cheated on me, because this was a final push that I needed to break away from him. Otherwise, I might have been still stuck in a loveless, one-sided marriage. I guess everything happens for a reason, and I believe in God. Given everything you've heard, do you think I handled this situation in the best way possible? I'm still grappling with the aftermath of the betrayals and struggling to rebuild my life. And sometimes I question my decisions. Your opinions on whether I was right to divorce Dave, pursue full custody, and how I handled my mother and Kylie would be incredibly valuable to me. Please share your thoughts. Any perspective, advice, or even just words of support would be appreciated as I navigate this incredibly challenging chapter.